What I have heard is that when you're in technology and you start managing people as opposed to doing things directly, you lose contact with technology. What is your take on that?
So I think there's a few things there, and that's a great question. Forget technology for a moment, but just taking a smart individual who's very capable of being an individual contributor and then elevating them to a leadership role and saying, now you have to lead people because you were so good at doing things by yourself, right? So that transition, we call that the tipping point in some cases, but you have to make or break, right? So you either learn how to work with others and produce results, or you become an individual and stay an individual contributor and you fail. So I think that transition happens, catapult that with IT overlay. I think the responsibility is on each person, if they have a passion for IT, to stay abreast of IT, regardless of your role. And I'll tell anyone every day that, we're all our own personal CIOs.
Right.
So know your technology because that is your future.
Welcome to the Best8a Podcast. In this episode, we talk with Tarrazzia Martin, a hot senior advisor of enterprise technology, planning and change management. Here's what she had to say.
Tarrazzia, so you have an incredible experience. The story of you is a story of federal progress, of somebody growing responsibilities in their career. So if you ask me, from what I see here, you started in the Department of Treasury, you work on infrastructure, then you went to GSA, then went to DHS, you were CIO, right, for USCIS?
Yes.
CIO, US, advanced agency, then national intelligence. When did you start it, or how did you start it in the federal government? What were your first steps in the federal government?
See, I actually began my government career at the IRS in Ogden, Utah, at the Ogden Service Center as a grade 2 after college. And my goal was to become Oprah. Growing up, I wanted to be Oprah so badly. So I went to college in broadcast journalism, communication, all the things. But no one wanted me at that time. They're like, nah. I was in Utah where there wasn't quite a big diversity quotient at the time. But so I ended up saying, oh, my gosh, I got to get a job. So I started with the IRS. And I started in the mailroom, literally, and sorting mail. And then moved up, I think, pretty consistently over the years. Came to D.C. on a vacation with some girlfriends and fell in love with it and said, I'm going to move here. Gotcha. And within 3 months of that vacation, I had bought a new car and I was here, and I've been here ever since. And
so IRS mailroom. So, clerical work. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, clerical work, mailroom, sorting mail. IRS has a lot of mail, as you can imagine, letters coming in about their tax returns, things like that.
Gotcha.
So those sorting bins, boom, 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 boom.
And then you moved to Washington, and I suspect with IRS, still with IRS.
Yes, with the IRS. Yep. I ended up working for the IRS and doing a lot of different jobs, but primarily in the technology arena, and actually built IRS's first management systems architecture. And that was really when I was a young pup because I had been trained in how to do modeling, simulation modeling. So that was really my first real job around, development and, of course, modeling in terms of business processes. They don't use this model anymore. It was called Kokomo modeling at the time. Mm-hmm. And they call it a lot of different things now. But that's how I began, and that's how I began to fall in love with IT.
I love it. All right, that was IRS. And then GSA.
Yes, so I left IRS and then was elevated to a job at Treasury. This was before GSA, and the job at Treasury was really beautiful too. Ended up operating as the deputy associate for infrastructure for a period of time, but did a lot of different work there, managed their telecommunications environment with multiple agencies that were under Treasury at the time. This is pre-DHS. So all of the agencies used Treasury's infrastructure, their networks, their data centers, all those things. So we were managing that environment, migrating from, one network provider to another, the game that we all do over the years, between Sprint, AT&T, you name it at that time. But anyway, managed that for some time and then took on a role at GSA to help them stand up something called FirstGov.gov, which is now called USA.gov.
Wow.
And worked with a great team of experts there to build out really our first federal government search engine, honestly, which is now what we use today as our foundation for customers who come in and want to know something about the government. They go to that source, can get, their services defined, all the way down to some of the states. So it's a pretty miraculous thing. And during that time, it was, just a vision, right? And now it's such a reality.
Wow.
It was amazing. Yeah, so that was GSA, and had a lot of great times there, and did a lot of big acquisitions that are still on the books. And then after that, ended up, when DHS was stood up, migrating over to Homeland as part of one of the first
Now,
employees.
shame on me, because I was not even in the United States at that point.
Where were you?
Well, I'm South America. I was in Argentina.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. But so I thought, shame on me, I thought TSA, so when was DHS created?
So DHS was created, I want to say, just before 9/11. It was in the works, but when 9/11 hit, it really catapulted everything.
Got you. Okay. And TSA was created at that point from scratch. As far
Yeah,
as
this is GSA, not TSA.
No, of course. But you're saying that DHS was created around 2000.
Yeah, sometime around there. Yeah.
Got it.
And during that time, it was really just so many infancy moves, right? But we were busy. The CIO at the time was a gentleman named Steve Cooper, who was a phenomenal leader in our industry, and he really set the tone for.
I know who he is. I know
Yeah.
Steve Cooper.
Yeah,
I know
met
who he
Steve?
is. I know who he is. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, he's an amazing human being. He set the foundation and the vision, really, for the 22 agencies to work together, how we would harmonize our technologies, where it made sense, keep that unique aspect of each agency, but really set the bar for what we see today at Homeland.
So, at this point in your career, what do you learn? You were able to be promoted. What I have heard is that when you're in technology and you start managing people as opposed to doing things directly, you lose contact with technology. So, there's a trade-off there, right? Some people like it, some people don't. What is your take on that? How to progress in a career as a federal employee? What are the trade-offs? What are the decisions you have to make in terms of growing?
So I think there's a few things there, and that's a great question. I think that, one of the things I think we learn, forget technology for a moment, but just taking a smart individual who's very capable being an individual contributor and then elevating them to a leadership role and saying, now you have to lead people because you were so good at doing things by yourself, right? So that transition, we call that the tipping point in some cases, but you have to make or break, right? So you either learn how to work with others and produce results, or you become an individual and stay an individual contributor and you fail. So I think that transition happens, catapult that with IT overlay. I think the responsibility is on each person, if they have a passion for IT, to stay abreast of IT, regardless of your role. And I'll tell anyone every day that, we're all our own personal CIOs. Right. So know your technology, because that is your future. That is our world.
So you say we're all our personal CIOs.
Absolutely.
Why? Why do you say that?
Well, I think over the years, at least in my career, we were counting on those CIOs to be all things to us in terms of all technology, all decisions about technology. Go to the CIO. They'll tell you about the infrastructure, the data center, where your data is, where your systems are, how to house them, what your business logic is. The CIO was that place. And I think what we've seen over the years is that business users, business owners, program managers that manage technology to meet mission have become their own little IT experts, right? Because they've had to. Because our IT or our CIO organizations are primarily focused on making sure that infrastructure is in place. So those apps work, right? My data comes to me when I need it, Gotcha. I'm meeting my mission requirements. So that's what I mean, is that we all have a responsibility for IT, not just the IT function.
I love it. What is your advice for people that are progressing in their federal careers and they have to manage others and they don't have the experience of managing others?
My experience is that definitely get some training and find as many mentors as you can, because it's not something you can learn by just taking a class. It comes to behavioral change and intuitive thinking. You've got to learn to be a leader. You've got to learn to be an IT expert, and you have to work at it. It's a full-time job staying abreast. But leadership is such in my opinion, art form. It's not a science. You've got to master what you bring and what others bring and really figure out how to balance that for the good of the mission. And I think what we see many times is that is a failure on many leaders' parts.
How did training benefit you, and how did mentors help you in your particular case? What training did you do that helped you in your career, and what can you tell us about mentors that help you?
I will tell you that I was so fortunate in my career, and I was driven to get my SES in 10 years after the mailroom experience. But what I really chose to do, and leadership saw a lot in me, and they put a lot of faith in me early on. So I remember my first executive leadership program. I think it was a grade 13 or something, or 12 maybe. And that was my first executive development program. And, subsequent to that, I had multiple opportunities to take more training, to be a better leader, to learn, to understand all the aspects of leadership, the human component, the emotional intelligence part of it, all those things. So I think the training has been invaluable. I can't even put it in a metric. That's how great it's been.
How about mentors?
So for mentorship, I was fortunate as well. I had Steve Cooper, as I mentioned before, major influencer in my life. We talk about influencers today on TikTok and social media. He was a social media, he's pre-social media, influencer. Pretty powerful guy. But I think, people like him, other people, Lily McCracken, I could list a whole list of people who have helped me become better and better and better at being a leader and a contributor and being selfless. The most important leadership skill, and I was on an interview a few weeks ago and mentioned this as well, is that it's being selfless, because that is how leaders should lead. When you bring self and emotion into it, then you lose the bubble and you lose the opportunity to lead others to success. And I think if I look back now, I would say that is the best lesson through mentorship, training, and experience.
To be selfless.
Be selfless.
Yeah, I think that, I can't remember who said that the secret to success is don't take credit for things. Something like that. I can't remember what it was. But yeah, certainly that's a good advice. How do you find good mentors? How do you do it? Where do you meet them? I guess you work, you go through your day, and when you meet somebody who's smart and seems to be a kind person, then you ask him or her to mentor you? Is that a formal or informal thing, or how do you do it?
I think in the older models of leadership, I think that was the teaching, right? Find a mentor, someone that you aspire to be like, and, follow them around and get them to teach you and learn. That is one path. I say mentorship is everywhere. Our children mentor us. Our friends mentor us. Strangers on the street that we meet mentor us. We have the opportunity to have a 360 view of mentorship, because everyone can teach you something, and you may be able to teach them something as well. And I think mentorship has been sort of a misnomer for a long time in terms of how we've described it. But I think when I look now and I see my life experience, my 22-year-old daughter or my best friend or even, a person that I'm helping as part of, living on the street, and they may say some life experience they've had. They're mentoring me with their experience and sharing it so I can have a better life experience. So
I love it.
I think that's what mentorship is.
Thanks for listening, and thanks to Tarrazzia. Goodbye.